Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Pixel tablet. And I'm really excited about this because I'm a huge fan of the Pixel phones. And I think we've got a really nice tablet here with the new one they've released. And back in the day, some of my favorite tablets were the Nexus tablets, like the Nexus 7. Really awesome for its time, and I've actually still got one laying around somewhere. But this is the brand new Pixel Tab, and it's definitely offering a lot more power than the older Nexus tablets did. With the Pixel tablet, they are offering a few different colors and a couple different storage options. The one I have here has 128 gigabytes of internal storage, but you can opt for the 256, and at the time of making this, it only comes with this kind of little package here. We've got the Home Hub, which is basically a speaker. The tablet magnetically attaches to the front. It'll also charge the tablet up while it's connected. You can use it for Google Assistant sitting in the kitchen, in the office, or anything like that. I don't know how much I'm going to be using it, but I've got it here because it did come with the whole package. But first impressions of the tablet itself, I'm really loving what they've done here. It's powered by the Google Tensor G2, so we've seen this CPU in other phones like the Pixel 7. That's my main Android phone right now, and I do think it does offer plenty of power, especially for a tablet like this. It's got a 10.95-inch IPS display. And I did want to show you this connected. As you see, just kind of magnetically attaches right to the front, built-in speaker, and we've got our power input around back here. The main thing I like about this is just kind of the charging mode. I don't use a Google Assistant or like Alexa at the house or anything like that, so it's really not going to come in too handy for that for me, but the tablet itself does look really good. Obviously, we do have some bezels up front here. This has never really bugged me. These aren't huge bezels or anything like that, but it would have been nice to have them a bit thinner. And like I mentioned, they are offering a few different color variants. You can pick up the rose, the hazel, which is more of a darker green, but I chose the porcelain, which gives us that white bezel up front, and around back, it's a bit of a kind of an off-white. I think it does look pretty good. Taking a look around the tablet, we've got a USB Type-C port down here and 2 of the 4 speakers we have on this unit. It's a quad speaker setup, which does sound great. Over here on this side, we've got our other 2 speakers, plus we've got a built-in microphone array. And finally, over here on the right-hand side, we've got our volume rocker and our power button/fingerprint sensor, so we can log in with fingerprint on this tablet. When it comes to the specs, like I mentioned, this is using the Google Tensor G2, same CPU we saw in the Pixel 7. We've got 2 X1 cores running at up to 2.85 GHz, 2 A78 cores running at 2.35 GHz, and 4 A55 cores at 1.8. When it comes to the GPU, this is utilizing the Mali G710 MP7. We've got 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it's going to stay 8 right now across the board, no matter what storage variant you pick up, 128 or 256, but both of them do use UFS 3.1 storage. It's got a 10.95 IPS display at 1600 by 2560, and it's got an aspect ratio of 16 by 10. Built-in quad speakers, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, a 27 watt-hour battery, and this is running Android 13, and since it's a Pixel device, we will get continuous updates on this unit. So far, I've had this in my possession for about 3 days, and it's kind of been my go-to little tablet for messing around online, watching videos, listening to music, playing some games, and overall performance is great on the Pixel tablet. Taking a look at the interface, obviously it is set up a bit different than a Pixel phone would be because we have a bigger screen here so they can kind of space everything out. But if you are a Pixel phone user, you'll be right at home with this unit here. We've got our search bar down below. You can set this up with as many widgets as you want. Obviously, we do have full access to Google Play, and the Wi-Fi 6 chip that they're using in here is super snappy. I mean, it loads everything up as fast as I need it to. In this video, we're definitely going to be testing out some native Android games and emulation, but before we really get into that, I did want to give you a look at some video playback. And by the way, when it comes to the Widevine level, we're level 1, so you don't need to worry about getting HD content from your favorite streaming apps like Netflix, Hulu, HBO. We're good to go here, and the display here is a little over 2K. It does look great. Now, it would have been nice if it used like an OLED display or something like that, but the IPS they chose here, given that it's 10.95 inches, looks really good. We do have some color profiles that we can choose from the settings to kind of set it up to your liking, but I'm sitting at the stock configuration, and I really enjoy the color saturation profile they have here. This is kind of my go-to test video on YouTube. 4K HDR 60 FPS. I do have stats for nerds up in the top left-hand corner. This chip will handle 4K video playback just fine, directly on the tablet itself, but remember, we don't have a 4K display. I still like running these 4K tests because obviously if it runs this, it's going to do 1440p, 720, 1080, anything below that just fine. And they really are pushing Google TV on these tablets. Now, I do enjoy it. I've got a lot of streaming apps that I, subscribe to. Even free ones will work with this. This just gives us a nice conglomeration or just kind of a central hub to find stuff to play. So I've got stuff in here from Disney+, Netflix, HBO, and Hulu. So as a media playback device, we've got access to everything we need here and more than enough performance to play it all at full speed. Next thing I wanted to take a look at were some benchmarks, and the first one here is Geekbench 6, single core 1380, multi 3407. Not too shabby for a tablet, but it is falling behind the Tab S8 because that does have that Snapdragon Gen 1 CPU. But moving over to the GPU benchmarks, we've got Wildlife 6574. And finally, Antutu. Across the board here, 849,668. And you can see we've got our UX score, memory, GPU, and CPU. Very impressed with the overall score here, but I kind of expected this because we have seen the G2 CPU before. Now, these are all synthetic benchmarks. The next thing I wanted to do was move over to some native Android gaming, then we'll check out some emulation. And the first one we're going to be taking a look at here is Minecraft. Remember, if you've got a Bluetooth controller, it's going to work with this just fine. But they do have some gaming-centric features built in. A lot of the new Pixel devices do. We've got a screen recorder, screenshot. We can do some streaming directly from here. But my favorite thing is that FPS counter. Got it listed on screen so we can see exactly if these games are running at full speed. And with the Tensor G2, I've never really had an issue before. I've been able to play any native Android game I've thrown at this chip so far, and with some of the harder to run games like Genshin Impact, I did have to drop it down to like a medium-high mix, but it still looks great on this 10.95-inch IPS display. And obviously, running something like Minecraft isn't going to give you an issue, so let's move over to Call of Duty Mobile. High settings, 60 FPS. It would have been nice if they added a 120Hz display here, but with the chipset and everything like that, I'd say 60 Hz is plenty for these games. Some of the stuff does allow you to go up to 120 if you had that screen, but really when it comes down to it, I don't mind playing at 60 with all of the stuff that I've been testing so far, especially emulation. And the final Android game I wanted to show off here was Genshin Impact. So with this, I'm set to 60 FPS, but I've got a high-medium mix. Unfortunately, we can't go all high with it. And even on the newer, more powerful Snapdragon chips, I still take it down to kind of a high-medium mix just to alleviate any of those major dips. At high, I did see this drop down to around 45, and even with this setup, you'll see some stutters every once in a while when those shaders are caching, but you get into playing this game, and you're not going to have an issue running it on the Pixel tablet with this Tensor G2 CPU. So really, when it comes down to it, any native Android game you can pick up from Google Play or Sideload is going to run at full speed. So the next thing I wanted to show off was some emulation. First up, we've got PSP using PPSSPP, Ghost of Sparta, 3x resolution, Vulkan backend, constant 60. Didn't think I'd have an issue here with PSP. And if we're able to run this hard to emulate game like this, the easier stuff can just go up in scale if you wanted to. Checking out the Dolphin emulator. First up, we've got some Wii emulation, Sonic Colors, Vulkan backend. We're at 1x. This game natively ran at 30 FPS on original hardware, so we're at 30 here. But this isn't a really hard game to emulate, so I wanted to move up to something that does give a lot of these chips a run for its money, and that's a Gamecube game known as F-Zero GX. We're on the Firefield track, which does have a lot going on in the background, as you can see. And on lower end devices, it's really hard to run this at full speed. But as you can see here, we've got a constant 60 across the board. Now another one that I did test was Rogue Squadron. I still haven't found an Android device that's going to run that at full speed just yet, maybe in the future. But when it comes to Wii and GameCube on this device, I've seen some amazing performance. Same goes for PS2 emulation using EtherSX2. Here's Mortal Kombat Armageddon, Vulkan backend, 3x resolution. So if I went over to OpenGL, this kind of does fall on its face, so you will have to kind of swap between OpenGL and Vulkan. And something like Crash Bandicoot, you can actually go up to 5x with this device, but there's one we always like to test here, and that's God of War 2. Still using the Vulkan backend, we're at 2x resolution, running great. So there's a few hacks you can turn on in the background to alleviate any kind of dips if you wanted to. Every once in a while, up in the top right hand corner, you'll see that FPS turn red. There it went. But this does run really well on the G2 CPU. And when the Pixel 7 was released, I did a full emulation showcase video. I had great performance across the board, so we're going to get that here because we're still using that Tensor G2 CPU. So first impressions here, really loving the Pixel tablet. I'm glad that Google released another one. Like I mentioned, back in the day, they had the Nexus series, and those were some of my favorite tablets, but they're really dated now. Of course, if you got one laying around, you can play some older stuff on it, but it's not going to do Gamecube or anything like that. The screen here looks absolutely beautiful. And since this tablet comes with a charger / speaker dock here, this could come in handy for a lot of people who kind of want a home assistant / tablet. Personally, I'm just really going to be using it for charging, maybe a little bit of music playback, because it does get a lot louder than I thought it would. Now, it's not the most powerful tablet on the market. That kind of goes to the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8, and I'm sure if they do the S9, it's going to have a more powerful CPU. But for the price here, coming in at $399 for the base model, 128 gigabytes of storage. It also comes with this speaker home dock thing. I do think it's a pretty decent deal when you take a look at tablet pricing right now. So there's a few more things I'd like to test with this, and I'll have at least one more video coming up soon, so keep an eye on the channel. But if you're interested in learning more, or maybe even picking one of these up, I will leave some links in the description. You can head over to the Google store, or you can pick this up on Amazon. I got mine on Amazon, but I'll leave both links down below. If there's anything else you want to see running on this in the next video, just let me know in the comments. And like always, thanks for watching.